There's a saying that when Rome falls, the whole world will fall, which frankly seems a little melodramatic and egotistical on the part of the Romans. Except they kinda had a point when you realize the fall of Rome affected basically everything in Europe, up to and including the body size of wild animals. You don't exactly see foxes dressing up like centurions or deer reenacting chariot races, so it doesn't seem like they should care, but they did. What happened to them and why is helping us understand how humans shape our environment. So here's why even animals think about the Roman Empire. Back in the middle of the 19th century, paleontologists began to notice that ancient animals seemed to get bigger over geological time. For example, horses used to be dog-sized, and now they can be taller than a person. And dinosaurs, pterosaurs, and marine reptiles in the Mesozoic all crept up in size before the impact did them dirty. The trend became known as Cope's rule, after American paleontologist and bone war-haver Edward Drinker Cope, one of the theory's early champions. But as with many things he did, Cope's rule has sparked controversy. Modern studies into thousands of species and simulation of evolutionary trends have supported the idea of a general increase. But there seem to be plenty of exceptions to the rule as well. In specific habitats where competition is high, food might be scarce, keeping animals smaller. This is often the case on small islands, leading to local populations that are basically miniature versions of normal animals. But remarkably, over the last few thousand years, another pattern has emerged. In a number of locations around the world, the trend for growth seems to have gone in the opposite direction. Many wild animals have gotten smaller over time. One of the big turning points seems to be the end of the last ice age, around 12,000 years ago. Around this time, the giants of that frozen era, like woolly mammoths, giant ground sloths, and direwolves, became extinct, and were replaced by smaller species like foxes, deer, and wild pigs. This came partially down to thermodynamics. In colder climates, large body sizes do well because they have a smaller surface area for their volume, so they can retain heat easily. But when it warms up, those large animals easily overheat, and smaller animals with relatively more surface area for their volume find it easier to cool down. Additionally, as the frozen tundra retreated and forests grew in its place, habitats also became disrupted and food sources became more unreliable. So it was goodbye Ice Age megafauna and hello small furry mammals for the duration of the Holocene. But warming temperatures weren't the only thing to change during this period. As the ice retreated, humans began to get a real foothold on the landscape. Specifically, Neolithic communities who had previously been nomadic hunter-gatherers settled down and started doing agriculture. That basically meant that they took wild species of plants and animals and domesticated them, making them more amenable to being kept close and looked after. Which sounds like a pretty cushy deal to me. Humans in different parts of the world domesticated animals at different times. The earliest was about 10,000 years ago in Southwest Asia, ranging to around 8,000 years ago in Europe. And if you look at domesticated farm animals today, it's easy to see our influence on their shape and size. Thanks to centuries or even millennia of selective breeding, they've become supercharged for meat, wool, and milk production. They're way chunkier than their wild relatives beyond the farm gates. But remarkably, this growth seems to have come at the expense of the wild animals. As domestic animals have grown bigger in recent centuries, wild animals have shrunk, but it's not clear why this should be the case. So, in 2025, a team of French researchers took a fresh look at animal sizes in the Western Mediterranean, charting the changes over the last 8,000 years to try and figure out what's going on. For this, they studied ancient animal remains from archaeological sites all across southern France, dating from the beginning of animal domestication in the region. In total, they looked at more than 250,000 bones from more than 300 sites, and tracked the size changes in domestic sheep, cows, goats, and chickens, as well as wild rabbits, hares, deer, and foxes. Alongside this, they cross-referenced with local climate records, plant successes, and archaeological records of human activity over time to build a complete picture of change in the region. With such detailed information, the researchers were actually able to identify 4 distinct phases of animal size changes and link them to climatic and human events. The first phase, between 6,000 and 2,000 BCE, corresponded to the Neolithic period of human civilization and saw all animals decreasing in size. Despite an increase in the numbers of domestic animals, like cows, both the domesticated and wild species in southern France shrank. This is consistent with records elsewhere in Central and Southern Europe, and with the general trend of post-Ice Age shrinking. The researchers think that this consistent drop is a result of a decrease in rain, changing how much vegetation was available for all animals in the area. The second phase of change spanned from 2000 BCE to 300 CE, corresponding to the Bronze Age, Iron Age, and the rise of Roman civilization in Western Europe. During this time, domestic animals began to grow larger and wild animals stopped shrinking, possibly for the first time since the end of the Ice Age. Wild foxes even started to increase in size. The researchers noted that this was a time of transformation for human societies, With growing populations, they changed the way they used land for agriculture and engaged in a lot more trade with communities from further afield. It's possible that these long-distance interactions are responsible for the increase in domestic animal size. New, larger breeds could have been brought into the area, marking the beginning of selective breeding as humans actively chose which breeds they wanted to rear. This, in addition to improvements in pastoral practices, led to bigger farm animals than ever before. As growing populations went all in on farming, they started to clear the ancient forests to make space, creating grasslands and croplands that favored the survival of wild animals too. Foxes, being a predatory species, fared especially well from this shift, since the increase in size and number of domestic animals meant there was plenty of food to prey on. So it was a booming time for everyone: humans, their animals, and the wild animals at the fringes too. And we're gonna get back to Rome, but first, all science needs funding, so here's a quick break.
This SciShow video is supported by Brilliant, the online learning platform personalized for you. When you jump into a complex topic like AI, you're coming at it with different background knowledge than someone else might. And that's why Brilliant adapts to each learner's unique starting point with personalized practice and review. It starts you at the right level based on your background, designs practice sets and reviews personalized for you, and helps you advance at your own ideal pace. Their award-winning team of professionals from top universities makes all of that possible. To learn for free on Brilliant for a full 30 days, go to brilliant.org/scishow, scan the QR code on screen, or click on the link in the description. They're also giving you unlimited daily access to everything on Brilliant with 20% off an annual premium subscription.
The success wasn't to last, because the third phase identified by the French researchers lasted from 300 CE to 1000 CE and corresponded to a widespread drop in wild and domestic animal sizes. Things had been going so well, but a decline in the number of archaeological sites from 200 CE onwards hints at the major societal change of this period: the decline and fall of the Western Roman Empire. The empire ultimately shattered from the inside out, thanks largely to political and social forces, but the effects of that change rippled out all across Europe. Where there had previously been large farms supplying crops and animals to the vast Roman cities, there were now smaller farms and villages focused on seeing to their own needs. This created less of a surplus available for domestic and wild animals, ultimately stalling their growth. It's likely that the climate played a role too. The landscape experienced what the researchers call an erosive crisis as a result of increased annual rainfall. In the past, extra rain could have been handled by Roman-built land drainage, but following the civilization's fall, all of this infrastructure was abandoned. The open landscapes were flooded and eroded by surface waters, sending humans into new territories, which in turn weakened and shrank wild animals' habitats. With less room to roam and less food to find, it's little wonder they stopped getting bigger. Intriguingly, it's also possible that both the humans and the animals' fall from grace were caused by the same thing. There's growing evidence that the influx of disease may have contributed to the fall of the Roman Empire, especially under a changing climate. The trade and connectivity that had been such a boost in the beginning ultimately opened humans and their animals up to new and exotic diseases from far away. And throughout the 700 years following 300 CE, there is archaeological and historical evidence of mass mortality among domestic animals. While the effects of these diseases on wild animals is still unknown, it's possible that natural selection favored disease resistance over body growth throughout this period. The fourth and final phase identified by the researchers spans the last 1,000 years from the Middle Ages to the modern age. Throughout this time, the growth of domestic and wild animals diverge and follow very different paths. Domestic animals grow larger, while wild animals, with the exception of rabbits, continue to shrink. The increase in domestic animal size is a result of humans really getting the hang of pastoral agriculture and selective breeding. But on its own, this shouldn't be enough to shrink their wild cousins. That doesn't mean that humans didn't find other ways to inadvertently alter the environment, though. In response to continuing climatic changes creating warmer temperatures and lower rainfall, European societies expanded their agricultural lands into new areas, which further fragmented and isolated wild animal habitats. Not only that, but there also seemed to be an increase in hunting throughout this period. It's been noticed before that when animals are hunted, their average size tends to decrease because hunters are preferentially removing bigger trophy animals from a population. So, as a result of this unnatural selection and the continuing destruction of natural habitats, wild animals found themselves shouldered out and diminished. And these are findings that are supported by observations elsewhere in the world. A study in 2003 that tracked the size of wild mammals in Denmark over the last 175 years showed that all but the smallest species have become progressively smaller along with the fragmentation of their habitats from agricultural expansion. Rabbits were alone in avoiding this widespread shrinkage, probably because they were on their way to being domesticated through the Middle Ages. The introduction of larger domesticated breeds to southern France blurred the lines between wild and domestic rabbits throughout this period. On the whole, for the last 1,000 years, the human transformation of the environment has been so significant that for the first time, it was this, rather than any other environmental factor, that drove the changes in animal size. Our favoritism for certain animals has exerted a divergent pressure on their body sizes, allowing some to grow large, ultimately at the expense of others. So, although we may not imagine that us humans are directly affecting wild populations, it'd be silly to assume that our actions don't have any knock-on effects. Often, the changes might not be caused by human activity alone, or by just the environment, but rather a combination of interactions and feedback between them, which serves as a reminder for us to be careful stewards, not just of the animals in our care, but of the Earth as a whole. We may never know the impact our actions are having.